Benjamin Franklin said, there are three kinds of people in this world. There are those that are immovable. Can't change, won't change, don't want to change, are happy with the status quo to do it how it's always been done. There are those that are immovable, which means they're the ones that know something needs to change. Something. They're curious. They know there's a better way. But most importantly, there are those that move. Which one are you?
Welcome to Together We Serve TV show. Which one are you? Think about that. Empathy in business, and my guest has been on my podcast. I love her to death because I talk about empathy in business. Why can't we have love and empathy in our business? Are we too afraid that we're going to get too close to our employees, our partners, our upper level or lower level executive, whatever it may be? Empathy is such a powerful tool, and especially nowadays with everything that's going on in the world, empathy is needed more than ever. It was needed 100 years ago and 50 years ago, but I think the power of this and EQ, emotional intelligence, we're going to talk about all that. And I've got to say in my monologue, I mentioned to my guest, is using what she taught me on my podcast has secured me the most incredible opportunity that I can ever imagine in 63 years of my life, because I understood talking to billionaires their emotional intelligence and is able to present mine to them, and they loved it. So let's bring my guest on. I turn everybody off. I got to bring him back. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me back. And it just makes me so happy to hear that story, Steve. I'm just like wiggling. So, you know.
It's powerful. And she's a fireball, not just because of her hair, but for other reasons. But empathy, let's start there, because our show is how emotional intelligence is seen through a lens of empathy. Talk about what I said, how important it is.
Man, you know, and it is important because it's really at the root of how we interact with each other. It's how we connect as human beings. We have this idea that empathy only means that I feel what you're feeling. And that's one definition, but there's actually 43 different kinds of empathy. So it's not just about connecting on that heart level. It's about connecting on a mind level. It's about connecting on financial levels. It's how we human. It's how you human. So to be able to go in and talk to those people in that manner and make that connection, that's huge. And the best part is it's a skill. We're all born with a certain amount of it, but we can actually learn how to use it better and to make it more actionable, and then be able to plug into other things like emotional intelligence.
I love that. I've got a question here. Where'd it go? There it is. Can you share a pivotal moment in your journey toward empathy?
Absolutely. So I know you kind of know my story to a certain degree, but I was a musician for a long, long time. And I went and became a professor. And within my first term, I was assaulted by one of my colleagues. And over the next 7 years, I was trying to get through the system to get somebody to listen, but I couldn't figure out why no one was listening and why no one heard me. And in hindsight, I believe it's because they just didn't have the empathy to be able to connect with me and understand, you know, that this is real, that this is a problem. I think they were beaten down by the system. People were beaten down by their own work. Within my department, it was just so dysfunctional. But that was the pivotal point, because if not for that, I probably would have just been a musician forever. Happily, I was happy as a musician. But there seemed to be something bigger going on. And once I left that job and started looking into other things and continuing some research on leadership and trying to look at a lot of the things that just aren't working within our systems, within our organizations, it just kept coming back to this. Somehow we aren't connecting as human beings. Well, what is it that's missing? What is that connection piece that isn't happening? And I really believe that's empathy. And again, were it not for that pivotal moment, I may never have come to that conclusion.
Yeah. Pivotal and pivoting is huge. You're a leadership coach. You help businesses and pivoting. Talk about the importance of pivoting. And COVID, of course, taught us all that. There's bankrupt companies out there that didn't use emotional intelligence and pivoting to do that. How important is it?
Oh, pivoting's huge because the only constant in the universe is change. That's it. So you think about a system, an organization, that sort of thing, and being able to allow that organization to breathe and move like an organism means you're going to have to pivot sometimes. Things are going to happen you weren't expecting. Things are going to turn out in ways that you didn't expect. People are going to do things that you didn't see coming. You've got to really be able to read the situation, which means being in touch with what's happening, and make those pivots. It's just kind of looking at systems, at system dynamics, and understanding that anything that's alive is going to be to a certain degree, unpredictable. And our organizations are alive. I mean, some people kind of look at them like machines, like they're just supposed to click along and everything is supposed to just work. But nothing could be further from the truth, because at the base of everything, organizations are made of people, and people are unpredictable.
Yeah, I call it the people asset investment. You need to invest into your people. So that leader that tells you, Melissa, it sounds great, but I don't be touchy-feely with my employees or my lower level managers. What do I do?
Well, the good news is you don't have to be touchy-feely. I mean, that's the nice thing about empathy. There's a kind of empathy called cognitive empathy, where logically you get it. You understand what's going on. You just don't necessarily feel it. We think of this definition of empathy as I feel what you're feeling, and that is one, but there's others. So it doesn't have to be the soft, fluffy puppies and rainbows kind of thing. At its base, it's how we connect as human beings.
So a thought just came to my head. I'm a football player, baseball player, especially football. We have that, ego, tough mentality, which is part of it because you're hitting people. So you're saying when my coach is yelling at me or yelling at players, they're showing empathy, but just in a different way.
Quite possibly. I mean, it kind of depends what they're yelling about and what the situation is. But I mean, they could be reading the situation and understanding the culture of what's happening and choosing to connect in that way because that's what's going to work. Empathy is so much bigger than people realize. It's huge.
Yeah. And it's just not love, what I'm hearing from you, which is powerful, which is why it's not always have to be touchy-feely. Mm-hmm. You don't need to love your employees, but respect them as human beings like you are.
Yes, exactly. And in a way, I think that's almost more important than love because, if you're leading an organization, you've got huge amounts of people that you have to take care of. You can't necessarily love them all because you're going to have to make hard decisions and there's going to be boundaries that have to be set and things that need to be done. But to respect them and understand them as human beings, that almost seems more important to me.
Can a company turn their non-empathy culture around? Or once you've shown non-empathy and you treat your employees like crap and you got to work extra hours and you need to come in on Saturday. Sorry, you got to work overtime even though your wife's pregnant, doing a couple of those type of scenarios. Can you flip that?
Yes, it is possible, but it's a lot harder because now you're not just building empathy, you're rebuilding trust. When employees see it at first, the first reaction always seems to be, oh, here comes another leadership initiative. Give them 30 days and it'll be done. But the thing with trust is it's sustained action over time. So if you continue to sustain this action and do it over and over and over again, and eventually rebuild that trust, yes, it's possible. And the best thing is since so much trickles down from the top culturally, if you start showing this at the top, it's going to start showing itself in the other levels once everybody believes you're serious about it.
So what I'm thinking is, an audience, if you're not taking notes, I am. This is huge because military guys I've interviewed that say it's amazing how humble those generals are. And we're life and death situations. Military is not running a farm. Yeah, it's but you're not killing anybody if you make a mistake. In the military, you could. even those generals humbly say, I made a mistake, let's correct it. Is humbleness part of this rebuilding trust?
Yes, absolutely. And some of that starts getting into self-empathy, which is yet another kind of empathy. And I found that a lot of leaders have a hard time showing empathy for themselves, which is part of the reason they have a hard time showing empathy for others.
And you had a hard time saying it. That's how hard it is.
I did, right? I didn't know it was going to be a tongue twister.
Yeah, that's so great. So there's hope. Somebody listening, an audience member, it's listening in this recording or live, because everybody wants to win in business. They want to be ROI. You need to make money. You need to want to pay your employees. Not all of them, but our goal is, of course, to keep the company alive. Yeah. So there's always hope. But I think what it sounds like, somebody like you needs to come in from a 30-foot view and go, okay, here's some things that need to change. Talk about that journey.
So to come into an organization like that, yes. And you really do need someone with a 30-foot view, because sometimes in these cultures, people just get very ingrained in what they're doing and they don't necessarily see it. So for me to come into an organization, I really would start at the top. I'd start at the top leadership. And where I would actually begin is to look at what they're doing. Are these leaders that can show self-empathy? Are they taking care of themselves? Or are, their families falling apart? They've got substance abuse issues. They're pushing themselves at all hours. And then they're treating their employees in the same way. So charity starts at home. First, they have to start with themselves. Then we start looking at the organization. For example, I was in a healthcare system a couple weeks ago, and the CEO completely unintentionally, she didn't mean anything malicious. She had been scheduled to do this huge meeting, and it was in the morning. And because it's a hospital, it's so that they could take third shift and first shift and get everybody in there at the same time. But at the last minute, she canceled it because she's like, oh, well, my kids are starting school today. Well, what she didn't see is that all of these employees that had made that time work also had kids that were starting school that day, also didn't necessarily want to be there after third shift, also had things that they could have been doing. So because she didn't show empathy towards what these people before she did what she did, she kind of stepped in it, and she made a lot of people angry, and she couldn't figure out why her employee satisfaction scores were going down. And it was because of stuff like this. And the thing is,
sharing that, and they're sharing the audience. Yeah, we have a live audience. Her mistake taught her a huge lesson, not just a little, but a huge lesson, right?
Yeah. And she didn't mean to do it. It wasn't that she was malicious in any way at all. She was just completely oblivious to how this was being perceived.
She made a mistake.
Yeah.
Which is big or little, doesn't matter. She made a mistake. The company didn't go out of business, the hospital, but we learned from those mistakes. Is that part of empathy too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're all going to make mistakes. And it works both ways. I mean, not only do I have to have empathy for myself and understand, yeah, I'm going to do stupid things, but if I'm showing empathy for other people, those people in turn are going to show empathy for me. It's a two-way street. It really does work both ways.
Let's talk about that, because that's powerful. An example would be, when I think we talked about in the podcast, was there's a big project coming up. It's Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific right now, and 10:25, let's say we have a business, and they're not going to get it done. But it's got to be out by Monday. Hey, can you guys do me a favor? Let's come in tomorrow from 12 to 2, and let's finish this project so we can get it out on Monday. Two scenarios. One, I treat my employees like crap. I'm screaming at them, da-da-da. Or I've taken care of them. I showed them empathy. Talk about that story and how that could be different with both scenarios.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you go in and you start making demands and screaming and yelling and having a fit, you might get people to do it, but they're not going to do it for the right reasons. It's not because they're loyal. It's not because they want to thrive and they want to see the organization do well. It's because there's a threat that if they don't show up, they're going to get beat on even more or maybe fired. Whereas if you lead from the front and maybe even show up yourself, and in fact, absolutely show up yourself and say, look, this is what's happened. I'm really sorry it's come down to the wire like this, but I need your help. We need to be able to do this together. Can I please count on you? This is really important. And I will be there right by your side because I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. Now you're creating that loyalty and those bonds and that trust. We're back to trust again. Funny how that works.
I just thinking out my head, we're coming back around to the trust and culture. Let's talk about culture because that's what we're talking about. Do people want to come to work or do they wake up Monday morning? God, I can go to work again today.
Yeah. It's really true. And the thing is with some of these younger generations, they're a lot less willing to put up with that. Oh, I got to go to work today. So there's something to be said for that too, that whereas, some of us older ones were willing to just kind of put up with it and the younger ones are not. So these businesses stand to lose if they don't figure out who their people are. And it really is a cultural thing. It becomes woven into the fabric. It's like Peter Drucker, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. If your culture is right, other things will work in the system. If your culture isn't right, you're going to struggle against it every single day.
I had a podcast guest last week that called it seasoned. We're seasoned. Oh, I'm seasoned because look at my gray. I love it. I love that word seasoned. A young startup. Yeah. So let's go from I'm sure you've worked with startups of very new companies.
Yeah.
You kind of have an advantage because they can now build this from the ground up compared to a 10-year-old company that's had bad culture, like you said earlier. What are some steps they should take besides hiring you to make sure empathy's part of that culture?
The big one is to build that know, like, and trust factor immediately. And that means right away, leading from the front, being seen by your people, being seen to do the same kind of things you're asking them to do, and really setting the tone right from the beginning. And the beauty of this know, like, and trust is that if it's working with your people, it's also going to be working with your customers. As your company scales up and you're building people underneath it, that's all going to drip down because now it's not just part of the culture. It's part of the legacy. It's part of the tradition. This is the company we are. This is how we hold ourselves. But really making sure that you're available, that you're seen. And a lot of leaders see this as kind of wasted time. They're like, why do I want to talk to my employees? Because they're the ones that make it so that everything runs. If they know you, they can begin to like you. If they like you, now you've built that trust right off the bat that everything else is based on.
God, so I could listen to you all day. It's so powerful. And a story comes to me is one of my guests was telling me, I forget what company. So this gentleman was the manager of the warehouse. Mm-hmm. He would come in every day, walk by every day. How you doing, Joe? Just check in 30 seconds.
Yes.
From 10, 15 minutes to walk through. And here's the powerful thing that really sets the tone for what you're saying. He hurt his back really bad, so then he was in a wheelchair. So what he did was, this is so much empathy, and thank you for sharing it, he had the company build a ramp so he could roll in his wheelchair and do the same thing. Kudos to the company because they built it. They understood what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he kept his, I guess in this sense, trust and promise to walk through. And the company flourished. And I probably to this day is flourishing. And then there's the flip side, which October 25th, 2024, McDonald's, we have an E. coli breakout. Massive problem. Massive problem. You got many franchises out there that are kind of not in control. I want you to talk about how you would handle that from the perspective of upper management. And I know you're not there, but upper management trickling all the way down to that drive-through person that's giving the meal and gets that question, hey, I just read E. coli. Is my food safe?
Yikes. Wow. When that's a massive organization. So first of all, I'm certain there's legalities going on here that I don't know about. And people are always concerned about, litigation and being sued and, oh my God, we admitted it and this kind of thing. But when you have customers going into an organization like this, there's a certain level of trust. Here we are again. And they trust you to just make sure that this food is safe. So honestly, if you wanted to save these customers and your people, the first thing I would say is, look, I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened. Mistakes were made. We're going to figure it out. But in the meantime, we're really sorry that these mistakes were made, because now this is going to affect the livelihood of their employees. This could potentially affect the health of some of their customers. And the second thing I would say is, we're a multinational organization and we have the money to be able to step up and make sure everything is okay. So let's make sure our employees are taken care of. Let's make sure that our customers are taken care of. And this is a huge PR thing too, because now it gets out there. Wow, McDonald's really does care about their people. They actually have empathy for their customers, for the people that may have been sick by this. Wow, that's the kind of organization I want to be associated with. That's the kind of place I want to go, because they actually do care. I'm not just some faceless number that has a cheeseburger, And I think it's really important to get those statements out there loud and proud right from the start.
You're a freaking rock star. Because honestly, I didn't prep her for this. It just came to my head because this is a perfect example. If McDonald's has done it right, and I would almost guess they would, that they built this culture of empathy. And because the other thing I go crazy over is they trickle down to those managers of each restaurant and say, just tell them to call the 800 number.
Yeah.
That is, talk about that, because it drives me bananas. Hey, I got a problem. We got to talk to my manager. He's not here today. But I got a problem right now.
Yeah.
I like to take care of it.
Well, that goes back to that CEO that I was talking about, how even though she didn't intend to do anything bad, the signal she sent was very loud that I care about me and I don't really care about you. And that's the same signal. Well, just have them call the 800 number. Well, but what about what's happening right now? What you're saying is you want to ship this off to something that's nameless and faceless and doesn't really care, so that you don't have to deal with it. And that's the complete wrong way to do it. Plus, you're saying to your managers, well, we're happy to hang you out to dry. We don't really care what's going on right now, and we're just going to let you take the brunt of it. Whereas in the opposite, if they could say, look, we're here to help. This is something that's out of your control if it's coming from our food stuff, and we want to be able to make this right. So we're here to support you. We are here so you can support your people the way they need to be supported, and we are here to support the customers. So let's figure out what we need to do that. To just say, go call a number, there's zero empathy there, because you're not connecting with anything or anyone on any level. So, you have a choice.
Yeah, and this is, audience, a perfect example, if you don't understand emotional intelligence, what she just said, because it's the emotions of your employees. Are you being smart about it? It's how I looked at it, and you taught me that. A couple other people that are in this space. Be in the shoes of that drive-through check, or whatever they call it, drive-through clerk. Be in their shoes. And the other flip side is In-N-Out Burger. Unbelievable. Their prices are low. You see, they show you their whole system as they're chopping potatoes and cooking their burgers. Yes, I eat there once in a while, and I shouldn't. I know. I'm working on it. But I love what you're doing. So you're taking two burger places, and McDonald's will probably do it right. I'm hoping they will, because they're a huge company. But being transparent, talk about that in your business to your customers, but also to your employees.
Yes. And if you can't be transparent, why not? I mean, if there is something happening that you can't be transparent with your customers and employees, then that's a prime place to take a look and say, I can't really show empathy because I'm too busy being covered with this. It really is important. We're back to trust again. I mean, it's such a basic foundational thing. If I can't trust what you have to say because you're always being guarded and there's always something hidden, then I can't know or like you either. And if I don't, that's going to spread. See, there's this one other little bit of empathy that people miss, and it's called emotional contagion. And what that is when a feeling or a thought or a sentiment will spread through a room like a virus. Like, say you're in a restaurant and someone gets engaged and, the whole room just seems a little warmer and a little happier. That's emotional contagion. Well, it also, if you've got a company and they're starting to get a bad rap because they're not taking care of their people, they're not taking care of their customers, and these bad feelings start to spread, how they'll spread through a workforce or they'll spread through a customer base. That's emotional contagion as well. And that's actually the very beginning of empathy, because you're taking something and more than one person is feeling it. So if you have the opportunity to spread this emotional contagion of well-being and loyalty and general positivity just by being transparent and open, then why not do that? You're saving yourself a lot of headache in the future. You're probably going to make more profit. You're going to be more productive. You're going to open up innovation because people will trust you to be able to come to you with their ideas. That transparency is huge. And again, if you're not being transparent, why not? And what's going on that maybe you should be.
Yeah, I love it. Another question came in on the screen. What inspired you to become an expert in empathy and emotional intelligence?
It was from starting with what happened to me as a musician, but then some of the other leaders that I've seen throughout my life, and how I would just look at them and go, don't you get it? You don't get it. Why don't you get it? Let me tell you what's going on. Let me help you. And not understanding where that disconnect was, because it was like, well, we're all people. Why is this so difficult? So I started digging in to try and figure out where that disconnect was. Emotional intelligence has been around since 1989. That's when it was first printed in an article. So we've been messing around with this for 30 years or so. And yet they still can't get a hold of it. And I really believe it's because empathy has gotten lumped in with emotional intelligence, whereas I think empathy has to come first. So it's a little bit different, but I'm really inspired to figure this out because we need it. Holy cow, do we need it? And we need it now more than ever with AI and with tech and with the generational friction and with everything that's going on. I'm inspired to keep going every single day just because I want to figure this out.
And you're making a difference. It's what that is. And it shouldn't be magical, but as more and more people embrace it, it's not magic, it's part of life. Yes. Before we go on our break, we'll take a quick break here. I've got to ask, it's a beautiful pendant on your left shoulder. What's that mean? What is that?
The dragon?
Yeah, that. Yeah. The red.
Yeah. That's my dragon because we're in the year of the dragon. So that's just to remind me that it's a year to be brave and be forward and to get my message out. It's not a year for being in, it's a year for being out. So that's why that's there.
I love it. Well, let's let Melissa take a quick break. Dr. Melissa, let me close this out. I like to use that because she's worked hard to get that DR in front of her. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to show you some of the stuff she's doing, and we'll come back talk about her book. Super excited about her book. So give us about 5-6 minutes, and we'll be back. A little break there, little jazz, pack up the blues that gets you going on this Friday before the weekend. One question for you. You have empathy? Ask yourself that. This whole first segment, my mind keeps going to that. And I tell you what, when you serve, you can have empathy. But it starts with yourself first. You have to have empathy for yourself, self-love, many other words, self-awareness, so many, because it starts with you. If you're not aware of all this, how can you really serve others? So empathy and service go together. And the value of that, maybe it's not dollars. Maybe it's the universe talking to you. But wouldn't you want to own a company, manage a company, or work at a company when you walk in and people having fun and there's empathy and maybe even love? People have met at work and fallen in love and got married. Yeah, I mean, it's a scenario that's probably not the best, but it happens because there was a good culture in that company. As my band ends up, that's my own band, like Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon. I got my own band. How cool is that? But we're going to bring Melissa back, Dr. Melissa. We're going to talk about her book. But one thing I want to ask you again, do you have empathy in your work and personal life? With that being said, let's bring back Dr. Melissa. Welcome back.
I was digging your music. I was like grooving.
Yeah, that was really cool. I just disappeared. Yeah, my band's awesome. Hey, thank you, band. We'll give you credit later. One thought as I'm going through your website, empathetic. Mm-hmm. That's the action of empathy, right?
Yes.
So if I don't have empathy, I can't be empathetic, so I can't take action. So empathy becomes before empathetic. It's hard for me to say action. I want you to talk about taking action. Saying, I'm empathetic, I've got a great culture and this and that, but I don't take action.
Yeah. Well, that's a subject that's near and dear to my heart because that's precisely what I talk about. You know, we do all these tests and all these metrics that say, yes, we have EQ. Yes, we have empathy. Well, how do you use it? Well, I have it. Well, how do you use it? So the thing with empathy is that it is that, you know, relating to another person, feeling what they're feeling, understanding what they're feeling, whatever it is. It's doing it without judgment. It's doing it without taking responsibility, without trying to fix it. And you may not even be speaking. It's what Brene Brown calls being in the suck. And that's exactly what it is because you're just in the feeling. Now, when you feel empathy and it's, you know, especially around like the darker emotions, usually it produces a little bit of discomfort. And what happens is that discomfort is what spurs people into action. And that action is called compassion. Empathy is what you feel. Compassion is what you do. And that's the beauty of empathy is that it isn't necessarily action-based in itself. It's just a transmission of communication between human beings. What you do with that is up to you, but then you can take action on it. If you don't have the correct communication to know what you should do to take action, which emotional intelligence skill you should use, whether you should show compassion or whether this is the time that it's best to just be quiet and listen, you have no idea what action to take. So it starts with empathy and understanding that human to human interaction. And then we can move on to the action. But if you just have it and you just feel it, that's great. But 95 to 98% of the population has empathy to some degree. So to hear someone say, well, I have empathy isn't really a surprise. Most people do. Question is, what are you going to do with it? I actually make that comparison of empathy is like a treadmill in that some people have it and it sits in the corner of the bedroom and they throw clothes on it and maybe the cat is sitting on it and they don't use it. So if you have it, but you don't use it, what good is that treadmill doing you? Because you're not getting any outcomes from it. The same with empathy. If you have it and you don't use it for action, what good has it done you? Because it's just sitting there.
And I have a treadmill. I'm going to go use it right after this show. That's my workout. So I'm glad I'm close. I know well, I'm not going to go there with the treadmill. But hey, I love working out and going to the gym. Got another question that came in. What are the key benefits of empathy and leadership according to your research?
Wow. Well, part of my research, of course, is digging into what other people have to say. And one of the big studies that I just can't get away from is one that was put out by Ernst & Young. the big four consulting in 2020, right after the pandemic. And they actually did a second study maybe a year ago or so to follow up on it. And they were looking specifically at empathy in the workplace and what it does for people and what it doesn't. And they were coming up with statistics like, more people are willing to stay in a job that if they feel the leadership is empathetic, more people are willing to show loyalty and not do the quiet quitting and not do the great resignation and not do that kind of thing. But the big thing they really found is that once they had distilled all of this information from the survey, and it was employees and leaders, that they were able to show that having empathy improved profits by 84%. Improved innovation by 87%, improved productivity by 88%. So if there is a question about, does empathy affect my bottom line? Yes, it can. And it can do it pretty quickly too, just like the lack of empathy can.
Yeah, I'm glad because I was going to ask you for some statistics because the bottom line, you're in business or life, the ROI is, that's what we're doing this for. I'm doing this TV show for an ROI. What that is, well, is my, what I think and so on and so forth. But you mentioned something so powerful. Let me take this question away because that was a great answer. Quiet quitting.
Yeah.
Irritates me. But I'm 63 and I may not understand it. You're a young woman, beautiful woman. What is, explain quiet quitting and what do you think the effects are of that?
I actually don't think quiet quitting is anything new. If you want to know the truth, I think this is the first time we've put a name on it. Because what it is people that are very disgruntled with their job. They're angry. They're maybe even despair, and they don't necessarily see a way out. So they have to, because they have to have the check. So what they do is they work as little as possible. It's kind of like the movie Office Space, when Peter says, well, I work just enough not to get fired. That's pretty much what it is. But realize that movie Office Space was my generation. That was Gen X. We were the original slacker generation. The boomers before them were the original dropout, tune in, whatever it was generation. So this becoming really disenfranchised with work and doing as little as possible to gain a paycheck has been going on for a long, long time. It's just that this is the first time we've put a title on it and the first time that we've had a generation be vocal about it that, yeah, I'm not doing any more than I have to get my paycheck because my leadership doesn't care about me. So why should I care about them?
We're going to get to the book, but you keep talking. I've got all these questions that come up. I'm an employee.
Yep.
Paychecks are important.
Yeah.
And you mentioned quiet quitting just to get the paycheck. But shouldn't he? So I get a job. It's an 8 to 5 at Google. I would think my goal is from empathetic emotional intelligence because that works at 8 to 5. The admin working the desk as it does the CEO and founder of the company. I mean, emotional intelligence across the board. If I want to grow with the company and I enjoy the company, shouldn't I not worry about a paycheck? Of course, get as much as I can, but worry about EQ and empathy while I'm working there?
Absolutely. And I actually I do point that out in my book. Because my big hope isn't necessarily in top leadership. It's in those middle managers. It's in the ones that can manage down and up. It's on the people that have the most contact and someday will be the top leaders. So yeah, as an employee, if that's what you want to do, start instilling it early and then start working your way up so that you can bring it to the whole company. See, there's that emotional contagion again over time.
Yeah. And trust. And it's interesting from a sports perspective, because I'm a big sports guy, is if I'm a head coach of an NFL team and I had no players, which would be the 8 to 5, even though they're paid a lot of money for doing it, they're still the employees. They're out doing the work to score the touchdowns, score the points, and win the game. If all 60 of those walk off the field, I got nobody to coach. So that upper management has no middle managers. Chances are the company's not going to do well.
No. My thing, because I was a musician for so long, is I always think of an orchestra because I've seen orchestras make it without a conductor. If you've got seasoned professionals and they've played these pieces and they can do it. But have you ever seen a conductor up there flapping his arms around with no orchestra? Yeah.
So it's an audience is why I bring guests smarter than me, because I learned so much, and that's powerful. And I humbly admit that we should be, even at 63, 23, 33, should always be learning. And that is so true. I never thought about it. Even though I don't go to the orchestra, I know what it looks like. Okay, let's get in the book. We're gonna, 10 minutes here or so left. Talk about the book that's coming. What's your mission and desire with the book, and what are people going to learn?
So I'm trying to cram as much of my methodology into this book as possible, because in all honesty, this is like a personal quest for me. I want to get this word out. I want people to learn about it. I want them to understand how to use it. So this book is geared towards leadership, but I do have an entire chapter dedicated to people in the middle management positions and talking about why it's so important, talking about self-leadership, like you were talking about that employee that can start learning it early, because empathy for the self and leading the self, then you're able to lead other people. And I try to at least touch on a lot of the things that are really important right now. I do touch on AI and empathy, which you talk about two things that don't seem to go together. Those are in there. I talk about the generational friction we've been talking about in empathy and how this could really make a big difference with our future workforce. I have a chapter on beige flags and red flags. So things that if you're seeing them in a leader, may mean that they really don't know how to employ empathy, or that maybe they really do want to employ empathy. They just don't quite know how. So this is my first one. I have a plan to do 6 or 7, hopefully, but I really am hoping that leadership can pick this up and get some stuff that they can use right away. As consultants, and coaches, we know that there's such a thing as the 30-day washout, where people employ these new techniques and bring in these new ideas, and they're really excited about it. But by the end of 30 days, they've gone back to doing what they've done before. In my book, I really make a point of saying, this isn't just something you do for 30 days. This isn't leadership in 4 easy steps. This is something you need to start incorporating as a personal practice every single day. If you can brush your teeth every day, you can take time to put some empathy in every single day. And this is something you do for the rest of your life. It's not a performance. It's a practice.
Habits.
Yep.
Empathy habits is what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's a great book. Oh my gosh. Because like service heart, serving, getting up early, working out, all those different things that become habits. It's the same thing here. If you have an empathy habit, which I know I do, humbly, I'm going to say that because I'm always looking to bring value to people. I have empathy for people. We do that, we're going to grow as an individual, which means our community or the group we're with is always going to grow with us, or hopefully grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point, right? We're in this together. Why not do the best we can together?
Well, you're going to see my mic drop. I'm not literally about my day. It's an expensive mic, but that's a mic drop moment. And that leads to always on our TV show is this. Okay, done. Okay, crowd, we love you. You learn this. I mean, there's more to that, but if you could just have the habit of empathy, that's a big, what's the word I want to use? Opportunity for you to have a higher ROI, have a better company, have a better family, have a better church, have a better school across the board, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing. You don't stick it in your desk drawer when you leave work. It goes with you.
That's a great phrase. I love that. What's the lens of empathy look like to you?
The lens of empathy. I really see empathy, and I know I keep saying it, but it's the thing that connects us all. It's the thing that allows us to understand each other where we're at. Not where we want to be, not where we think we should be, not where we hope to be, but where we're at. It's a humanizing thing so that I understand and see you, you understand and see me, and now we can spread this out to others as well.
Man, you need to sit on my little my shoulder as a little person, because every time you talk, you get me thinking about so much. And I'm thinking about this. How many times have we been in a restaurant and somebody's food's cold or missing, and you hear this, "Hey, waiter, come here. The food is cold," screaming. The waiter comes over, a waitress, and they're screaming at him. Manager comes over, they're screaming at him. Instead of having empathy, which I teach all the time. "Hey, my food's cold. So how can we take care of this? Not screaming at them, being very nice. Because what's the phrase about being nice gets you something? I can't remember. It's an old phrase. Being nice, the sugar phrase. I'm doing this live, and people are like, "God, he doesn't know that phrase."
You get more flies with sugar than you do with vinegar.
Thank you. My guest is the host now. She's taken over the show, which I'm so glad she has. No, and that's kind of the bow around empathy. Give people sugar.
It is. And you benefit. At the end of the day, you are going to catch more flies with sugar. And there's always unseen ramifications. You're nice, and then that person is nice to someone else, and this contagion spreads, and now you've got a better organization. Or you can have unforeseen circumstances, like you've yelled at the waiter, and now this waiter takes your plate in the kitchen. Well, do you think they're going to be happy with you?
Things could happen.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's such a good analogy for empathy. I've talked to over hundreds of managers. My wife, she goes crazy. And we just did this about 6 weeks ago. I asked the waitress, I said, "Hey, can you go get the manager?" I didn't give her a reason. She said, "Hey, everything okay?" "No, just go get the manager." And I do it purposely because you see her walk over, and then you see the two going, "What'd you do?" You can't hear her, but you can tell it's like, "Oh my God," it's blowing up in our face. The manager came over. Her name was Tony, and Debbie was the waitress. And I said, "Tony, oh my God, Debbie was so good. She was friendly, We edified her because she was great. Be authentic again. Empathy means authenticity.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know what you were going to say." And I asked her this question. I said, "How many times do you hear that about your employees?" So I've been here 12 years. I've heard it 3 times in 12 years. Audience, I want you to think about that. Where's the empathy on the customer side? That's why I love what you're talking about. It's missing. I've talked to hundreds. 80% of them have once a year, once a month is the lowest amount of time that I've heard. They should hear it every time.
Yes.
Grocery store, "Hey, thank you for remembering people's name." I won't get into all that. Oh God, you just got my head spinning. And what happened with that, the waitress came over and thanked us. And we didn't ask for this gift, but a gift came back. And this is why I love empathy. She says, "Hey, I work at the 49ers Stadium. I'm a bartender. Come by and I'll get you both a free drink. I thank you so much." We didn't ask for it. We didn't expect that. Of course, if we go out there, we're going to look for it and probably get a free drink and buy other drinks.
Yeah.
That's what the world needs more. Let's exchange these gifts of empathy.
Yes.
I'm going to write that down. Gifts of empathy.
I love it.
Talk about it as a gift. I want to hear your perspective.
Well, it is a gift because in order to have empathy, you're giving a little bit of yourself. It is a vulnerable thing. You have to open yourself up enough to be able to receive that information. So it is a gift. But just like other gifts, usually if you give, people are more likely to give back. And think about it as a gift that keeps going. I mean, you'll see her again and she'll be happy to see you. It won't be like, "Oh no, it's those customers." It'll be like, "Yay, it's these customers." But now she may go home and have a better night with her spouse or her kids. In turn, those kids may have a better day in school because they had a better night. And it ripples out just like that. If you have a boss that screams at a manager, and then that manager screams at their employees, and then those employees go home and have a miserable night with their family, and their family, it can ripple out either way. So why not do it positively? Let's make things better instead of making them worse.
Well, absolutely. Oh my God. If you want to grow with empathy, we're at the end here. Reach out to Melissa. Her contact information is on there. I've got a quick improv question for you.
Yes.
You got a minute. I've reserved a Learjet for you with 4 seats. You're in one of the seats. In the other 3 seats, who are you going to invite, dead or alive? And where are you going to fly in that Learjet? Where am I taking you to?
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad it's a Learjet. That's awesome. Dead or alive, I would get Banksy the artist from England that does all that amazing graffiti, because he's so involved socially, but he does it in a way that nobody knows who he is. It's anonymous. He's not doing it for the fame or whatever. He's doing it because this is what he really believes. I would bring Bruce Lee, because here's a guy that actually wanted to study philosophy and didn't, because he didn't feel his English was good enough. And his plan B was to become a movie star. And he's just this fascinating character I'd love to know more about. And the third person would be Aretha Franklin, as the Queen of Soul, coming up through the Motor City singing in a time when women didn't really do this, and women didn't have control of their own finances or really their own lives at all. She did it, and she did it her own way, and she did it that way all the way up until she died. And I would love to get some pearls of wisdom from her, because I bet she has some amazing stories.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And where are we flying?
Malta.
Ooh. Might have to get an extra seat for me, because that's one place I definitely want to go. You're
Excellent.
a blessing. God bless you. You've been an incredible guest. People, please reach out to me if you have any questions. You know how to contact me. Empathy, that's the word of this week, and practice it, live it, just like Dr. Melissa said, and I guarantee your life will change. We'll see you in the next episode of Together We Serve. Have a great day, everyone.